This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Teens share everything. That may include the bacteria that can cause meningococcal disease known as meningitis. Even if your teen's been vaccinated in the past, they could still be missing meningitis vaccinations. Ask your teen's doctor or visit meningitis.com today. Sponsored by GSK.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
A singular focus on the Iran deal, what's in it, what isn't in it. And I haven't changed my position from last night, and I don't think anyone listening should either. Folks, paper and agreements and it don't matter. It matters what President Trump does and what Iran does going forward. And I am singularly convinced that Iran will not hold up to this deal no matter how favorable it is. Making a big deal about how favorable this is to Iran is a waste of time. It just is, because they're not going to uphold the deal no matter how favorable it is to them. This we know from countless long experience. And so the question is what President Trump will do when they break it. And as I said last evening, and I continue to believe now, we can be less than 100% sure that President Trump will do something definitive about it when Iran breaks the deal. But there is no other president in American history who I have more confidence in actually doing something definitive than Donald Trump. Not because I don't know him personally, so I can't say whether he's a great guy or not. This is not me sainting Donald Trump or anything else like that. It's just from, again, similar experience. And by the way, do yourselves a favor, everyone listening, and don't decide that everything has to either be the denigration of or the sainthood of, the sanctification of people, whether it's politics, sports, celebrities. Keep yourself on an even keel, and then you'll really be a happier person. Keep your love or real hatred for people that you really know and truly know personally. And hopefully your love will outstrip your hatred. You know, someone giving you bad vibes, move away from them in all ways, shapes, and forms. That's really important to do. So I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I really think there's just been a lot of over hand-wringing about this. It's not that this isn't an important story. I'm not saying you shouldn't cover it. And absolutely, as journalists, now that we have the points, the White House coming out with them for all of us to look at, sure, look at them, digest them, learn from them. All of that is certainly worth our time as regular journalists. But for an analysis program like this one, I continue to try to boil it down to the real, bare, important facts, which are that Iran will not uphold this deal. This I believe 100%. And I do believe that President Trump will do something about it. Gun to my head, I think he will do something about it when they break it. Significantly. Not a little violation here or there, but a significant breaking of the deal, which I believe they'll do. And that's really important for everyone to understand. Go to sleep with this one. Everything else is just conjecture, fighting back and forth, doomsdayism. You know, there's a lot of doomsdayism about this, and I'm not criticizing those who are criticizing the deal. Don't get me wrong. You can do that. But the whole doomsday scenario thing over this is going too far because nothing has happened yet. As far as Iran getting money, as far as Iran getting off the hook, this regime with a lot of moving parts within the regime, although I don't feel there's going to be any real difference of ideology in the new leaders of the regime, but nothing has really happened yet. Pieces of paper are pieces of paper. It's like having paper gains in the stock market. It's not real until you use that to buy something else or you have something more tangible. So anyway, this is a strong belief that I have, and I think people need to understand this and move on for now. Keep paying attention. I'm not saying move on, don't pay any attention to it. I just mean leave the hand wringing. Hand wringing is like guilt. It's a useless emotion. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't necessarily lead to anything. If guilt becomes something that gets you to do something about something you're feeling guilty about, that's different. But it's a useless emotion, and it's useless to worry without doing anything about it. So I think it's important just to keep speaking up and saying what I'm saying, which is we know Iran's going to break this deal. So we're not telling you not to sign it. Go ahead and go through the motions. But we expect you to do something about it when they break it. And President Trump has not been holding back. Today he said, the bombs are going to start falling again if they break it, if I don't like this deal. So that's good enough for me for now. Because let's say the deal had a bunch of things, everything I liked in it. Wow, fantastic. The regime needs to give up. They need to have democratic elections. They need to stop funding all. I could have my Christmas or Hanukkah list of everything I want in it. It's not going to be upheld anyway. So what's the point? Would that make me happier? Not really, because I know whom we're dealing with. So again, but don't take this as me criticizing those who are criticizing the deal. That's fine to do. It's just I am upset if all you're going to do is hand wringing. You can criticize every aspect of the deal, but please come to the conclusion that I'm coming to, because I feel very strongly about it, and that is it just matters what President Trump's going to do when they break it. And let's give President Trump all the support we can to tell him that, Mr. President, when and if, and we believe it will be if, it will be when, not an if, Iran breaks this deal, we will support your actions to punish them severely, and don't worry about that, and we will rally the rest of the American people whom are still rallyable, not the people who just hate everything you do, and if you say 2 + 2 is 4, they'll say it's 5. We all agree we can't fix those people. And let's just let the president know that he has our support when he's going to have to crack down on them. And that's it. Not because we're Trump fans or we're just Republicans, but just because we're fans of America and decency and doing the right thing. I remember during the first Iran deal, the Obama-Iran deal, and it turned out my congresswoman in my district on Long Island, who was a Democrat, was opposed to it. She was one of the few Democrats who spoke out against it, and she was pushing that. And her name was Kathleen Rice. And by the way, her opposition to Obama and that Iran deal is a big reason why she's not in Congress anymore. She didn't lose an election, she just kind of dropped out, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat power base at the time meant to punish her. She had also tried to work a replacement for Nancy Pelosi. So she was on the naughty list for the Democrats. But anyway, she came to campaign in my neighborhood. And I remember she came to a forum, and I got a chance to talk to her in front of an audience. And I just said, hey, and this was just in the beginning of this whole process. I said, listen, I see that you're going to oppose the Obama nuclear deal with Iran. Good for you, especially as a Democrat. I just want you to know that even though I'm not a Democrat and I didn't vote for you, you have my support for this. If anyone ever asks me, and I'll go an extra mile, and I'm doing it all these years later, 11 years later. I want to say good on you for making this decision. And that's what I really ask everyone to do, no matter what political party you're in. And I know that in these days, it seems like a lot to ask of the American people. For me to go to 100 random American people and say, I don't know how you voted, what party you're a member of, but all I ask of you is that when an elected leader pursues a policy that you like and you support, will you speak out for it and forget about who the person is and look at policies and try to find a place in your heart to understand that actions speak louder than words, especially in politics, even though the media and everyone else treats it the other way around, which is sick and pathetic. And one of the reasons why our political culture is so ill right now. We absolutely reward people for things they say over the things they do in American politics and in celebrityhood. It drives me nuts, by the way. It's the easiest thing in the world to say the right things to certain people. It's what you do that's more important. And that's true in your private lives and your professional lives, political lives, and non-political lives. This isn't hard to understand. I don't think anyone out there can possibly disagree with what I just said. So all I ask you is, whether it's Donald Trump, maybe you hate him. Whether it's some far-left Democrat, maybe you hate them. When they do enact a policy or push for a policy that you are in favor of, show some moral courage and say we support them. You can say, I don't usually support this guy or this gal, but I like this policy. I can think of one thing or two about Obama I can say that about. When he authorized the surge in Afghanistan early in his presidency, I publicly said that was a great idea. Good for you. Didn't vote for him either time. I think he was a lousy president. I don't think he's the greatest guy either, although I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to go on record as far as that's concerned. Who knows? But I like the surge in Afghanistan. Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, didn't really like any of his policies, but I actually think that the Vision Zero policy of slowing the damn cars in a city where there are more pedestrians than any other city in America was a good policy. I don't think that he got everything right with bike lanes and everything else, but I like that policy. I don't like I don't like just about anything else he did. And, it's important to do that. It's important for your own personal integrity to do stuff like that. At the same time, not everything is hunky-dory positive. I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not here to say cheerlead people if you don't think they deserve cheerleading. But we're not going to get better as a country until we start judging people by their actions and start looking at politicians based on their policies. I don't know Donald Trump personally. I don't think I ever will. Because I'm relatively nobody, right? So he doesn't need to know me, and that's the end of it. So why did I vote for him 3 times? Why do I support him? Because I would say 90 to 95% of his policies I support. Some of those, by the way, some of that percentage includes policies that before he supported them, I hadn't really given much thought to. But now I support them. Gave them support, not because of him, but because I looked into it and I thought, this makes sense. That's why I support him. It's as simple as that. I don't need to go to rallies or get a Trump tattoo or do any of those kinds of things. For the people who want to do that, that's great. But to me, it's as simple as this. I support his policies, the overwhelming majority of them. And the people I don't vote for, I don't support their policies, usually the overwhelming majority of them. And on top of that, we also have some insane policies that people are pursuing, some insane messaging that some people are messaging, again, from the Democratic Party. And when we come back here on the Stone Zone, I'm filling in for him right now. I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone. When we come back, I want you to listen to some of those kinds of insane policies and reasonings from someone running for Congress right here in New York City, just to give you an idea of how twisted and strange this entire discourse has become. And unfortunately, it isn't just talk. It does also lead to policy. Again, I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone in the Stone Zone. Roger Stone will be joining us again at the bottom of the hour, but we'll be right back with the strange reasoning of one Democrat candidate for Congress. Be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone again in the Stone Zone. We are expecting to be joined by Roger Stone himself at the bottom of the hour. So that's just a few minutes from now. So please stay tuned for that. One more thing about the Iran deal and everything going on here. Let me just remind you not to get too hung up about any money going into Iran after this war is over, if this is going to really happen. Because, have you been paying attention to history for the last, 80, 90 years? Even when the United States gets unconditional surrenders and the complete collapse of enemy regimes, like Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, we end up flooding them with money anyway. We rebuilt these countries, particularly Japan, which was not subject to the Marshall Plan, where, there was some other money that went into to the European nations. So, when the United States, there used to be an old joke in Israel, by the way, when they had economic problems. When Golda Meir was prime minister, Israel was going through, they often had economic problems in their early years, much better, more solid economically the last 30 years or so. But the joke was Golda Meir was going to attack the United States because every time the United States defeats a country in war, they end up building them up. People were looking at Japan at the time and Germany. At one point, Japan and Germany were the two most strongest economies in the world after the United States. So we're in it financially no matter what happens, folks. Study your history and study the realities. But when we talk about stretching the truth, if that's what you want to talk about, we have a couple of congressional campaigns, elections here in New York City. And June 23rd, so a week from yesterday, we're going to have our primaries here in the New York area. And 2 congressional primaries in the Manhattan area are going to be held. One of them is, again, it's between the Democrats. Republicans don't have a fighting chance in these particular primaries, in these particular elections. One of them is going to be Brad Lander, an incredibly offensive policy-wise, again, don't know the man personally, far-left Democrat, viciously anti-Semitic, and yes, he's ethnically Jewish, but that doesn't matter. Again, know your history, read your Bible. Since the Exodus from Egypt, there's been a small percentage, but a loud one, of Jews who would rather see the rest of their fellow Jews perish, and he's one of them. Sorry. He's going up against Dan Goldman, who's not much better, also a far leftist. Both of them are Trump deranged. Both of them are insane. I wish both sides great victories as they battle each other. I really don't care. But there's another primary that I find more interesting, and that is this primary between Antonio Espaillat, who is a longer-serving Democrat congressman, also Trump deranged and another one of these kinds of guys, but a little bit more serious and a little bit more statesmanlike than Brad Lander and Dan Goldman. And he's being challenged by a Democrat socialist, a communist, really, Daria-Liza Avila-Chevalier, who's apparently her real claim to fame is the fact that she's an anti-Semite and hates Israel. By the way, why this matters to people running for urban areas in elections, I don't know. But here she is explaining why she thinks there's a connection between poor people in her proposed district and in Gaza. I mean, listen to this twisted logic.
Yes, so I was in Nablus for over almost 2 months, and I visited many cities in the region, both in the West Bank and in Israel. And what I found in my time there was a system of apartheid. And I saw so many connections between what was happening to Palestinians there in Palestine and what was happening to so many communities across the U.S., particularly Black and Latino communities, who have been priced out and pushed out of our homes.
What? Wait a minute, I thought it was the evil Israelis who were ethnically cleansing them. Now she's blaming it on corporate interests? You know, we can say up and down that people like her and AOC are morons, but the truth is, they think you're a moron, and that's much more concerning. We'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone, but Roger Stone joins us on the phone. And Roger, last night we were talking and you talked about here on the air, here on the Stone Zone, and you talked about how the Panicans are getting overboard here with their fears about the midterms being a disaster. And no sooner did we talk about it, but then Harry Enton, who is as close to an honest journalist as CNN is ever going to get, had this to say, I think pretty much at the same moment we were talking. Listen to this, Roger.
I think the warning sign is this. Democrats have an edge, but compared to what we see historically, it's really not that big of a lead. I mean, just take a look here. Okay, this is Congress National June polls, Dem leads, and this is NBC News, midterm years with the GOP press. Look at this. They're up by 5 points, but that's half the lead they had back in 2018 when it was 10 points, and less than half the lead they had back in 2006 with 11 points when Democrats took back the House in both of those years. And now the Democratic lead is on a single hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So there you go, Roger. This is a winnable midterm election for the Republicans, isn't it?
No, there's no question, Jake. First of all, let me thank you for keeping my seat warm there at the Stone Zone. I appreciate it, as I've been in Washington, D.C., Disneyland on the Potomac, taking care of some business. But I think there's a number of things people here don't understand. First of all, Republicans have an enormous financial advantage. We have a war chest today sitting around $6 billion. By election day, it'll be closer to $8 billion to spend on the midterm elections at all levels, state, federal, and local. Democrats are in debt. They're still in debt from the Kamala Harris fiasco. So that is an advantage. Redistricting, which originally, I must admit, I thought would be a wash. Redistricting has turned out to be an advantage. The Supreme Court decision that said you cannot use race as one of the factors in redistricting, really dealt a significant blow to the Democrats, particularly in the South. I think that's worth perhaps as many as 19 additional seats to become competitive in the South. So there are two advantages. And then lastly, we have the fact that the Democrats, they have a lot of gripes, they have a lot of complaints, they have Trump derangement syndrome, but what they don't have is a platform. They have no plan to create jobs. They have no plan to bring down food prices. They have no plan to expand the availability of affordable housing. They literally have no plan. So they're pushing a negative agenda, if you will. We don't like Trump. That's not enough to win a midterm election, in my opinion.
You know, they also don't have a leader either, and I don't know how important that is for midterm elections because it's not a presidential election. But I'm sure you, of all people, have noticed there is no real front runner for the Democrats right now, even for president. I mean, so you could say Gavin Newsom, you could say Kamala Harris, but I think it's a real stretch to call them a front runner, even among Democrats, let alone the rest of the country. Is that a problem for them too?
It's funny you should mention this. I was with Doug Davenport today, one of the leading Republican strategists in our party, a guy whose real expertise is convention politics and county delegates. Mm-hmm. One of the most knowledgeable guys I know. And he says to me, their real problem is, who's their front runner? Is it Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of Chicago, or is it AOC, or maybe, God, would this be great, it's Kamala Harris coming back for another shot, or Gavin Newsom. Now, if you're Gavin Newsom, kind of reminded of Mike Dukakis in a way. What's your slogan? He'll do for America what he's done for California? It's not much of a slogan. If you look at California, you have a state with near perfect weather year-round. One of the most, physically beautiful, naturally beautiful places on earth, and they have turned it into the world's largest outdoor toilet. It's gross. I would say my wife and I used to go rent a home in Santa Monica or Venice Beach for a month every summer. I wouldn't go to either one of those places now because you'd have to beat back the homeless people and the drug addicts and people who were defecating in the streets in order to get into a restaurant or a store. So it's pathetic what they have done, but that's what the high tax, soft on crime policies of Gavin Newsom have done. And we haven't even gotten to the corruption yet. Millions and millions and millions of dollars in states like California, states like Minnesota, states like Michigan, they're literally just missing. It's a massive scandal. If people think, for example, in Minnesota, the Somali community-based scandals where millions of dollars of our tax dollars have disappeared, if people don't think that will be an issue in the upcoming elections, I think they're very wrong.
Yeah, and of course, Kamala Harris is also from California. It's the fruit of the poison tree, really, when you think about it. The thing about Kamala Harris is, and this is something, if you remember, in the first 2 years after the 2016 elections, there was also a push to rerun Hillary Clinton as well. I remember I wrote an editorial at the time for CNBC explaining why, you just can't do that. And the last person who didn't get the message after losing a presidential election was Adlai Stevenson. Do you know that after he lost in 52 and 56, he expected to be nominated again in 1960? You probably know that. The guy was incredibly arrogant and in a bubble. But the point is, when you lose a presidential election in modern America, that you can't really recover from that unless that's why somebody like Richard Nixon and Donald Trump are so incredibly unique. It's very, very hard to recover from that, especially if you don't have any kind of track record or policy record like Kamala Harris doesn't have. You know what I mean? This is incredible that she's even being considered.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that she would be a better candidate this time than she was last time with her famous word salads.
I haven't got any smarter.
She certainly has not gotten any smarter. That is true. I will say that I'm impressed, Jake, with the fact that that in 1960, Eleanor Roosevelt and Joe Rao so despised John F. Kennedy because he was an anti-communist, because he wasn't really a liberal, that they did try to get Adlai Stevenson nominated for a third time. He already lost the presidency in 1952 and 1956, and yes, they tried to get him nominated a third time. He's like the George McGovern of the 50s.
Yeah, he wouldn't stop running. Incredible. By the he had the best PR agent ever. People really thought he was a highly educated guy. When he passed away, they found like one book in his apartment, and it was the Social Register. And he was just a complete fraud. But anyway, I want to get back to something you talked about earlier, which is the funding advantage that Republicans have. And that's for sure true. But that leads me to want to ask you about the growing scandal of solid evidence that the Democrats are getting foreign funding to their campaigns via places like ActBlue, which admitted that they did not vet a tremendous amount of the donations that they funneled to the Democrat Party. And there are still people out there, by the way, a lot of them happen to be Republicans, who say that they found charges on their credit cards from ActBlue. I mean, so last night we talked about the Save America Act. That's a priority. But we got to clean up it didn't take long, really, for foreign governments to figure out ways around whatever safeguards we have from them from investing in our campaigns.
This is a massive scandal. I'm glad that you footnoted this. I spoke about it on the Stone Zone. I think it was Monday. Mm-hmm. For people who aren't familiar, ActBlue is a payment processor. And what they do is they allow people to make contributions using credit cards where they turn off the verification. So you don't have to put in an address so that the card's authenticity is verified. Or they allow people to give contributions with prepaid credit cards or through PayPal. So what they're basically doing is they're flooding millions of dollars, largely foreign money, into the American political system, and they're attributing to donors who didn't really give it. So like my friend James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, now with O'Keefe Media. He goes to the homes of these people, knocks on the door, says, "Hey, Mrs. McGillicuddy, I'm James O'Keefe. I'd like to ask you about these contributions you gave to Kamala Harris." And Mrs. McGillicuddy says, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Well, here's a list of you gave 22 times, and you gave $25 each time." And Mrs. McGillicuddy says, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even like Kamala Harris. I haven't given any money. Wait a minute, she says, a long time ago, I think I gave $15 to Hillary Clinton, but that has to be decades ago. This is very typical. And they have, in the Senate races particularly, they have flooded money into all of these individual federal races that from what we call Smurfs. That's the technical term. These are people who don't really exist. So sometimes the person who's the alleged donor, the address that they give is an address that doesn't exist. The person does not exist. Or other times, they're giving money in the name of someone else. But when you go check with that person, if they're not scared by the glare of the cameras, they tell you the truth, which is they didn't give the money. This is a massive, multi-billion-dollar scandal. But here's the good news, Jake. The woman who is the CEO of ActBlue, she made $350K last year.
So you think that's gonna lead to some revelations from her as far as that concerned?
Well, here's what I do know, and that is once the House Oversight Committee started investigating, all the lawyers and all the top executives at ActBlue almost immediately resigned and disappeared. So I think this is a massive, massive campaign finance scandal, and I'm not sure what happens when they can't take this money in.
Right, and it's money laundering. This is a really, and by the way, what a great money laundering scam. The people whose accounts are being used don't even know. I mean, that's really helpful. This reminds me of something though that also just really grinds my gears, and I'm sure it does to you as well. Whenever we talk about these kinds of things, whether it's ballot box stuffing, ballot harvesting, or stuff like ActBlue, you get this pat answer from the Democrats and the mainstream media. They keep saying the same term every single time. There is no evidence of anything. There's also something called common sense. I'll share a little secret with you, although it's not really a secret, with you and all the audience. My great-great-grandfather, Morris Eller, was a Republican operative in Chicago. He was also probably, and I know everyone thinks it's Meyer Lansky, but remember, Meyer Lansky never had his own operation. He worked for others. He probably was the most successful and powerful Jewish mobster in American history. He had a tremendous operation. And one of the things he did was not necessarily vote rigging, Roger, but what he used to do is he would kidnap Democrat vote riggers on Election Day, put them up in a nice hotel at gunpoint, and keep them in that hotel until the election was over. That's how he helped the Republicans win elections. It was kind of brilliant because there was nothing they could get him on. There was no paper fraud to look at. My point is, can we just have common sense? We all agree that winning elections is an item of value. You're telling me that there's no evidence that no one is trying to steal an item of value? That would be the first time in human history that there wasn't at least some attempt to steal something. And there's always a 20% or 10% rate of theft, no matter what it is, no matter how well you guard it. I mean, the stretching of common sense that the mainstream media and the Democrats demand of us is no longer just a joke, because this is serious. I mean, these are not just Democrats and liberals out there. I refuse to call George Soros and Neville Singham leftists. They're not leftists. They're enemies of the United States. They're not really political. They just hate us. They're our enemies. It's got nothing. They don't really. I don't think they have a political philosophy other than they hate the United States and they have financial interest in our failure. This is not a joke. And this is a massive money laundering scheme. I mean, every time there's an ID theft story about somebody's information getting out on the dark web, they break in the news about it. But this they won't report. No evidence. I mean, it stretches credulity, and it's really annoying to me.
Well, first of all, Jake, now that I know your heritage, I like you even more. But then secondarily, I'm reminded of this incredible interview that we just saw a couple weeks ago where Kristen Welker with NBC insists in her interview with Donald Trump that there's literally no evidence whatsoever of irregularities or anomalies in the 2020 election, when, in fact, the president's right. The evidence is all around us. It reminded me of when Leslie Stahl insisted with a huge amount of arrogance that Donald Trump's campaign was never spied on, which, of course, we now know, thanks to the declassified documents provided by Tulsi Gabbard, whose last day on the job, by the way, is tomorrow. One of the reasons I'm in Washington is to see her. Is absolutely untrue. So the left, they can never admit the truth, not even to try to preserve their own credibility. I think you may have been the one who said it. Instead of saying, well, there might have been some minor fraud, but it wasn't enough to actually change the results of the election. It's like, no, there was no fraud whatsoever. What are you talking about? You're a lunatic. You're a conspiracy theorist. When the proof is all around us. I mean, when more people vote in the city of Philadelphia than are registered to vote, I'd say that's proof of voter fraud. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's just. Stop with the no evidence. It's just, it's real arrogance. Like they don't understand that this is a conversation the American people want to have, and they're just making it worse. Roger, if you can stay with us after the break, I'd like to get into another thing that you talked about before, which is the redistricting situation, and a strong belief I have about the way that we need to talk about it in this country, and another example of how the mainstream media is lying about it. So if you stick with us, we'll get into that here on the Stone Zone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And this is truly still the Stone Zone this evening because we still have Roger Stone on the phone. I'm Jake Novak, sitting in the regular chair for Roger. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Roger, if you will indulge me just for a minute, because you were talking about the redistricting and how you believe it went from being a wash for the Republicans to now an advantage. I want to read you a paragraph, and I'm sorry I have to do this because this is a paragraph from CNN.com, which I think gets to the heart of the dishonest packaging of this whole redistricting thing. Here it is. Now, this is about actually a story that's not so great for the Republicans. The Georgia legislature has decided not to go ahead with redistricting, which is a mistake. But here's the headline, the lead paragraph. Georgia's Republican legislative leaders on Wednesday rejected Governor Brian Kemp's call to redraw congressional and legislative districts during a special session, citing concerns about moving too quickly after, here's the key phrase, after a U.S. Supreme Court decision weakened Federal Voting Rights Act protections for minority voters. And Roger, you know why this grinds my gears? Because to me, this is the greatest act, the redistricting thing here, and the destruction of and the erasing of these racially gerrymandered districts, I believe, is one of the greatest liberating chances for Black Americans since either at least the Emancipation Proclamation or the 1964 Civil Rights Act, because this is feudalism, Roger. These black candidates or the people who represent these black gerrymandered districts know they don't have to do a darn thing, especially economically, for their districts. And so, guess what? They don't. The idea that this is somehow taking away a protection from what? So they can continue to be serfs? I mean, to me, this is the big problem here. America doesn't realize that these gerrymandered districts are a huge reason for the economic backwardness of too many black Americans. I'm sure you agree.
Well, Jake, I don't get my news from CNN for the same reason I don't drink out of the toilet. I mean, you're absolutely right here. Here's the problem for the Democrats. First of all, the word gerrymander, which is spelled Gerry, gerrymander, is named after a Democrat state legislator in Massachusetts. Yep. They have already gerrymandered any place they can. So they've rigged the districts in California, Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania, just for examples. There are no new districts for them to invent. In fact, they had to have these racial divisions to come up with these weirdly shaped districts in order to preserve the rigged maps. Now the Supreme Court won't allow that anymore. So you have in states like Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, for example, places where you can have a fairer, more equitable congressional redistricting, and that means Republicans are likely to pick up seats. There is no place else for them to steal seats. They've been engaged in the same activity for decades, and now they're vexing. There is no weakening of voting rights protections. That is a falsehood. But you're right. Now what you won't have are safe districts where minority incumbents don't even have to show up for work because they know that they will be reelected. Now you have more competitive districts, and that in itself is a plus for the American people.
And the opposite is true, because what you want to be in America is a swing voter. And that increases the chances of you being catered to and listened to by tenfold. So it's actually not a weakening of black voting rights in this country. It's going to strengthen them. Suddenly they will be in districts where they could decide an election. That's what you want to be. You know, billionaires in America, for example, they don't all vote one way. They're not all Democrats or all Republican, and that's because they're smart. That's how they got to be billionaires. They know that they're a swing vote. So are some other groups. Catholics in America have traditionally been swing voters. Black people becoming swing voters in this country for real, not just about a turnout thing, is going to be great for them. Roger, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Jake. God bless you.
Same here. All right, folks. I'm Jake Novak. We just heard from Roger Stone in the Stone Zone. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?